I am back. In today's project, we're going to change the back brake line on here. We put the stainless one on the front, back one came in, so we'll change it out. Like before, this factory cable, or this factory line, is kind of weird because it's got sections of rubber and then it's got sections of steel. And it has the switch for the brake light under here in a special fitting. So we're changing all that out. And I see why they did it this way, but still. A lot of times on your banjo fitting on your master cylinder, you just use a switch built into the banjo bolt. But since it's right out there in the open, sticking straight up in the air, they probably didn't want to have a bunch of wires coming out the top. So they mounted it down underneath. So we'll take all this off. Basically, it's take this bolt out, take the banjo bolt out on the caliper, and then 3 clips. And then a clip for the, you can't see it on there, clip for the wire connector for the brake light switch. Parts going back in like before is the new hose. They marked it master cylinder, but you wouldn't be able to get it on there any other way because that. Here is the fitting in between that your brake light switch hooks up to, which looks like it's just standard pipe thread. Then your clamps, got one special clamp, I believe it goes on this piece. Then new banjo bolts and washers. Here's a view of your brake light switch. We'll take the connector off it and then disconnect all these brackets that hold it to the bottom of the swing arm. Take the banjo bolt out there, drain the fluid out, we'll get that hose out of there. Okay, got the hose loose. There's the hardware. There was 2 10mm, and by 10mm I mean the head size, 10mm bolts that hooked here and here on the bottom of the swing arm. And one of my clamps, something has smacked it. It was all bent around. Then there was a small Phillips head screw that held a clamp right here to a bracket that was built onto that switch, and I'll show you that in a second when I get that out of there. And that bracket was held on by these 2 Torx bit screws, and they were, what I use, T40 to get those out of there. And then that one clamp should replace all that. So right now, I'm going to stick a rag in there, pull that banjo bolt out, get that line down off of the caliper so I can get the fluid drained out. Okay, I pulled that line loose, pulled it down out of the swing arm with that rag underneath it. I got it dripping in a bucket here, draining everything out of the line and the reservoir. And since it's like 100 degrees out here again today, I'm going to go get a drink while that's dripping. And I'll be back. Make sure to take your cap loose on your master cylinder so it can flow out nicely. Fluid's all drained out now, so we need to want to stick some rags in there because you don't want any fluid getting on your belt if you can avoid it. Take this banjo out, and you should be able to just slide the hose assembly straight out over the belt and out the bottom. And here is the factory mess. You've got your switch here that you need to unscrew and save because that's got to go in the other line. And then this bracket, there's where the 2 bolts went through, and then that small hole is where that clamp spun around. And I actually had to take the clamp loose and bend the line slightly to get to one of the bolts. But it comes off the master cylinder, guys. I got a little piece of rubber, then your metal line going into that block, and then metal line coming out. Yeah, it's just, rather have one braided stainless. So now that that's out of the way, I'm going to spend a little time scrubbing on the bottom swing arm because everything's dirty under there. And then we'll put the new hose in. New hose is ready to go in. I cleaned up the brake pressure switch, screwed it in there. Like I said, it is pipe thread. I used some sealant on the threads to keep it from leaking since I'm not a big fan of pipe threads in brake systems, but it's what we got. Make sure if you use Teflon tape or sealant to keep it back on the threads to where it doesn't get into the actual hydraulic system. Now, I took the tag off already, but the end with the 90-degree fitting is the master cylinder. So I'm going to slip this down in there, put the banjo bolt in this end, and then see what we need to do to fasten the rest of it up. Well, it is on there, but I am not happy with it. Part of it's freaking Harley's fault for the way they've got this crap jammed in there. The main thing was trying to get the hose through that area without it rubbing the belt. What Galfer wanted you to do is to use one of the clips. Get under here so you can see. They wanted you to use one of the clips and put it in to this bolt here, which is your tie bolt for the engine. It's like, I don't want to put one in there. Plus the fact that they said they sent special clip that's been modified so it'll fit that bolt. Well, it won't fit the bolt. So that didn't work either. So what I did was these two holes here are where that original bracket went in, and I put a clamp. You were supposed to have a clamp on this side and then the one on that tie bolt. Well, I just put a clamp on both sides of this junction box for the brake switch, and that holds it nice and rigid there. And to gain clearance over here, I just swiveled this 90. It's supposed to be over here generally. Well, I swiveled it this way, and that lifts it up. And I had my son get out here and bounce up and down on it. It looked like it had plenty of clearance. It's not touching anything. It fits in there okay. So we're going to try that. I mean, I'll watch the bottom of this, see if it ever contacts the belt. No going over bumps or anything. The rest of it, pretty straightforward. Just through the slot there, clamp there using your original bolt, and it's good to go. So now, throw some fluid in it and bleed it out. Before I bleed it out, if this doesn't work, I'm thinking smarter money would have been to run the brake line on top of the swing arm. I don't know if they were just trying to hide it or what the heck they were doing. I mean, they have that stupid switch assembly, but I'll put a different kind of switch on it if I have to, and build a new line to run through here if this doesn't work out, because, hey, that's just how I am. All right, we got the super suck. Got it hooked up to the bleeder. Bleeder valve is closed, master cylinder's full. So I'm doing this one-handed. Suck up a little vacuum there. Open the bleeder. You can see the gauge going down. I don't know if you can see that, but there's stuff going through the hose. Yeah, we'll shut it off. Alright, I'd already done that a couple of times. So what I'm going to do now is hook on my old trusty bottle and hose, and we'll use the master cylinder to pump a little bit more through, make sure we have all the air out and have a good firm pedal. So I got the bleeder valve just cracked open. Come over here, check my cylinder again. And we'll give her a little pump. See it forcing the air bubbles through. Let it up, do that again. Level in the master cylinder is going down steadily. See, we're not getting any bubbles now, so I'm going to shut that bleeder valve and see how the pedal feels. Feels about right. So we'll just top off the master, make sure it's at the right level. Take the hose off, clean everything up. One thing I did forget to mention is that valve under there where the brake light switch screws in does pivot on both hoses, which makes it nice. That way you can turn the hoses and get everything lined up exactly how you need it. If that was solid and they didn't get the banjos lined up, it could be a pain. But they do swivel. It's a nice feature. And we'll be ready to give it a test ride when it's not 100 degrees outside.